Hi guys, welcome to a new video. Well, a lot has happened, especially this night when we got this big flush. We're gonna go through it all. First off, let me remind you, if you are looking for an exchange and want a deposit bonus, check out Bybit and Prime XPT. And yeah, we're gonna go straight into it. So some of you may have already seen this post by me on Twitter. It was something I shared in the Crypto Hounds, my Discord group, and also on my friend tag. It was basically a scenario which I had in mind, and obviously, this is very, very far in advance. Like a lot can happen in the meantime. But the first thing I was looking for this past week, I think I started saying this on Wednesday or whatever, that due to the high amount of leverage being built up, like there was a lot of open interest, funding rates were high. At some point, like I wasn't sure when, but I was assuming like in the next 1 or 2 weeks. Well, it was like 1 week later, not even. We would get some kind of flush to take out all this high leverage and then take out all the pre-positioned longs into this ETF. And then from there on out, hopefully we recover near the end of the year and into the ETF, which I'm assuming will get approved, hopefully. So for now, that's basically what has happened. So I was assuming like a 10% dump or so on BTC. Well, we got basically nearly exactly 10%. I think on the futures and perpetuals pairs, it went a bit deeper, so it went to about 10%. Alts went to like 20-ish%, depending on which alt you're looking at. And a lot of it just recovered already for the most part, like at least half of it, which BTC did as well. So with that, I am just assuming this was it. Like a lot of it got flushed, and I think any bear trend or further leg down is on a bit of a deadline, because I really can't see us go down like a week before a possible ETF. So I think if we'd see further downside, it has to happen like in the next 1 or 2 weeks. So of course, not ruling anything out. I think the 43K level is the most important thing to watch right now, as it will basically reconfirm like a retake of this previous range low here. So with that, I do think these flushes are generally pretty good opportunities, especially if you're early. Sadly, like the flush happened for me at about, as you can see, 3 a.m. So I was asleep and I didn't have any bid set or anything. But if you're seeing this live during like these bigger bull trends, and you're also seeing the perpetuals or whatever wick like way lower than the spot pairs, it's usually a sign of like a big squeeze, and then there's a lot of forced selling. So no one actually wants to sell down here, but it happens due to the liquidations and the stop hunts or the stop losses that are getting triggered. Usually if you're seeing some kind of reversal around that time and you're right on it, then you can get some pretty solid entries. But yeah, like I said, I was asleep, so sadly I couldn't capture anything like that. But I still think this was a nice reset that was needed for the market, and hopefully it can just go on here, get this last leg up into this ETF, and then follow my plan where we just make a yearly high around here, new yearly high. And then from there on out, I would assume after the ETF, Bitcoin will just consolidate a bit, maybe bleed down a bit. I don't think it's going to go do like some crazy numbers and go back to like the below 30K or whatever. But I mean, maybe somewhere around like 38-ish over the next couple of months after the ETF. It really depends on the flows, to be honest. Like if this ETF is like a huge success from the start and there's like hundreds of millions flowing in, obviously it's not gonna go down that much. But yeah, that's basically my base case for now, and this can change. I do think, regardless of what BTC does, that alts will catch up, because they've been getting butchered for like the past year or so, or more at this point, like well over a year, versus BTC. So I think regardless of what BTC does after this ETF, I think alts will get a bit of more of a spotlight again, and they will probably do relative to BTC. To easily journal and track your trades, consider trying out CoinMarketManager. It's as simple as connecting your exchange API to the website to get your analytics ready. Sign up using the link below, get a 14-day trial, and I hope you really enjoy it. I know I've been using it for a while and I can't go without at this point. I could easily also see days where BTC is maybe down a bit, and then if Bitcoin dominance starts trending down, then you can easily still see up days on alts, for example. Kind of similar to this this big day on ETH like a few days ago. I'm still assuming this takes out the June lows, by the way, upon an ETF approval. So one more wick down and then hopefully recover afterwards. But here you can see ETH-BTC was up like 5% or 6% on the day. And I think BTC was down like 1%. So that means in USD valuation, ETH was up like 5%, while BTC was down. Well, if you're like really into an alt season where Bitcoin dominance trends down, you can have those kind of days quite often where Bitcoin is down a bit, and then because mostly all the capital is just flowing into alts, then alts can easily be up even though Bitcoin is down. And it's not something we've seen a lot during the past the past year or so, because obviously Bitcoin dominance has been going up only. So usually Bitcoin outperformed on the upside and the downside. So I don't think that will change for a bit, for like few months at least after the ETF. Obviously, we'll have to see if that actually happens, but I mean, we can look from case to case and then see from there. And then a lot of this, I mean, some of this is so far out. This was just an estimate, mainly for fun and to look back on later. So really, don't pin me down on this. Then who knows what changes in the meantime? A lot can change, and it rarely goes ever to your expectations. So, but this was just a fun little experiment, and the only thing I was pretty certain about was this first flash somewhere around these few weeks, but glad to have seen it happen, and hopefully that was it, and we can just grind back higher for now, and then after the ETF we'll see again, assuming this ETF will come, of course. Then ETH went basically to the zone we were looking for, perfectly to this 0.382 from this big fib, which I just took from the highs to the lows, and you can see how these higher time frame fib levels tend to work very well. Then, of course, we retested basically the 2023 highs, the previous highs, and also this January low, January 2022 that is. And I said I wouldn't want to see this go back below here, but I mean, we retested it. I think the futures went a bit deeper to around here. So it was a nice retest, and from there on out, so far, it's a decent recovery. So as long as we trade above here, I can be bearish on ETH on the higher time frame. I mean, higher time frame, of course, it's basically been trending up for a long time already. So, but yeah, I think below here would be a bit scary. But for now, I think this is looking perfectly fine. ETH-BTC we talked about. Bitcoin dominance we talked about as well. I think upon an ETF approval, we might head to the about this 56-ish area. It really depends how much of a wick we get and how high BTC will go. I think most of this will just be a wick, and it will retrace rather quickly afterwards. But yeah, it can go. I think it can go up until this area, and then from there on out, hopefully, it starts trending down. All right. Then one setup I wanted to highlight, which was nice. We took this in the Discord as well. We shorted Ordi or Ordinals, whatever you want to call it. Basically, this meme coin on BTC. So during all this time, things were still pretty hyped. ETH was making new highs and stuff, but the main case, which is why I wanted to highlight this, is because my main thesis for this was the fact that we broke down from this parabola, then we basically swept the all-time highs again, but it rejected, so it was pretty weak on its own. Then you also had a few trading days here where the volume was like twice as high as its market cap. Well, that's usually a good indication that these parabolic runs are getting to their end in the short term. So yeah, then there was further weakness, and we were hovering around this area. So I think right here I took the short. We almost went to the first take profit level, but then we bent up a bit. Luckily, stop loss had enough room. I do like to give these stop losses a bit more room, especially when they're against the trend. And then luckily this move down here made us hit like 2 take profit levels, and then some is still running. But yeah, for these counter trend moves, I always want to have like a bigger or a wider stop loss, and then also make sure to manage your risk, of course, because I mean, this thing just went 20x. What's stopping it from like doing another 2x? Hypothetically, of course. But yeah, this one I wanted to highlight. And then onto the chart or the altcoin suggestions by you guys. First on Radiant, I do hold some of this in my spot bag. I think it's rather weak still. I mean, it's not that far off the lows. I do think the levels are pretty clear, so you can easily see this range between like, let's say 24 and 30 cents right now. I think this would be a decent area to potentially bid, but I mean, for now, I'm not touching this back. I'm just letting it do its thing. I think for this to really start accelerating, it really has to first retake 30 cents, but then obviously this zone, as you can see here, there was basically where we rejected about 3 times and where we broke down from. And then this gap up here is like pretty thin. There's not much resistance. So once it really retakes this kind of level, then you can really start looking for much higher. I think then it's gonna move quickly, but until then it's probably gonna be rather slow. Then Beam. I mean, this thing has done crazy numbers. It went like 5x to the highs from this low in about a month, a bit more than a month. So yeah, I mean, these kind of things, they're great when you're holding and it's trending up and the dip's getting bought up quickly. So that's nice. For like a trading setup, I find these a bit more difficult, I would say, because it's best to just have a wide invalidation, because if you're trading the lower time frame, sure, maybe you can scalp these moves. You know, you try to get in a wick and get out quickly. That's always possible, as there's plenty of volume and also volatility, of course, with these things. But yeah, I mean, if you're trying to position yourself for like a midterm-ish hold, and then you get these 20% moves, you really need a wide stop or just a really good entry from before. So I think a spot hold, this is nice, and you can just ride the trend until the market structure really changes. So let's say we go down here and then you see it here, try to get up, but then starts rejecting again, and it's making a lower high while also making here already a lower low. Then that could be a sign that, okay, it's probably shifting and the momentum has ended and you could get out, for example. But until then, I mean, these kind of things, usually you just want to let them run, unless you get like a good thesis on why not to, or you're happy taking profit. And then from there on out, just go from there and see if anything changes. Then metic, also very clean in terms of its higher time frame horizontals. I just put up a few here, but you can see, especially this one actually, like the 94 cents area, you can see how often it perfectly touches like on all these daily candles. And it's really an important level. And then of course you got this diagonal right above us. So for the higher time frame, I would want to see this being flipped, and then from there on out we can likely head much higher. Until then, I think this is basically just in consolidation now, and we would want to wait for like a breakout. Alternatively, if it goes at low, which I doubt unless we get like a market-wide full-on consolidation or breakdown, then this level would be very nice, but I don't think we're gonna get that very easily. And alternatively, you can of course look for something around this area, where down at these lows. Let's see if it retests it again, but ideally this should just start grinding against this diagonal and then at some point break above. AVAX has been one of the stronger coins recently. It really followed Solana initially, and then the past few days it has been much stronger. So I think there's some rotation happening as well between Solana and AVAX. You can see how we retested perfectly here this high in May. So I think this was during the lunar collapse, then the initial bounce, and then from there on out it rejected again, and we made new lows there. So this 38 level is important. It's nice to see that it did hold this 32 level now during this flush overnight. And I think up on like this could be a very decent trade up on like breaking above 38. And of course you want it to hold from there. But then you can play this move down here, which is basically a big inefficiency. There's basically no trading done in this area except for maybe here in August 21. But this should act as like just a void and not as much as of a resistance. So I think if this can break and hold above 38 and move higher is very much possible. And of course, you got easy invalidation below 38 or even 32-ish. But yeah, overall, a pretty nice move by AVEX. And of course, I mean, this has gone up also like 4x now in the matter of 2-ish months. So it's, I wouldn't say this is where you want to really add on long-term bags or whatever. I mean, maybe I'm mistaken, but usually the long-term bags, you want to wait for some higher time frame reversal and stuff. But I mean, for these quicker trades, I think these kind of moves can do pretty well. And then lastly, we got Link. As we know, this thing has ranged for a long time. We spoke about that before. Right now, we to the highs from the breakout, we went to like 80%-ish, which I think is fair, but overall, I'm expecting higher for this in the time to come. And here as well, the horizontals are pretty clean. So I think the important one here is this 13.4-ish level, because I mean, we can see how it has had these huge bounces from that area, as well as here it holding as support. But yeah, basically right now we're in between this range between 13.4 and 18.3-ish. And this is the same idea as AVEX here. Let's say you break above 18 and you hold. Then this area up here is pretty thin as well, because here is basically a pretty clean zone and without much of resistance. And I think in between here, it's probably going to cool down a bit if we do continue up here in the shorter term. But yeah, right now I'm just watching all these things level by level, and especially the higher time frame. If you zoom out, it's very clear. And yeah, you don't have to get caught up in all this low time frame noise, because here as well, Link basically hasn't been moving for the past month or so. But in between, you have all these big wicks and candles, and it all, one day it looks scary, the next day it looks amazing, and in the end it's just chopping people up, generating liquidity, taking out people, and then usually in these higher time frame uptrends, it will just end up going up regardless. So that's why spot holds on these kind of things are much easier than trading this on leverage or anything. All right, that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Feel free to drop suggestions for next week or videos in general, or any feedback. And yeah, I wish you all a good day. Bye bye.